Hello, scholars. I'm down at Hubbard Park again this morning, and I am enjoying our beautiful weather that we've had here this week. And I hope you get out and do something very similar. It's extremely important right now, where we're starting to get into the meat of the semester, that you find ways to relax and recharge yourself. And for me, it's getting outside and wandering around through a little bit of nature. I am sitting in a spot where I think I'm a little less likely to be interrupted by squirrels, though if one does decide to jump up at the picnic table I'm sitting at, I will be sure to turn the camera towards it once again. This week we're talking about outlining, and more specifically, covering introductions and conclusions, because, surprise, you've already done a little bit of outlining up to this point. Now, I'm emailing everybody individually about your topic choices, and if you don't get an email about that, it means you didn't submit a topic. Get in touch with me right away. We want to get something approved for you, something that's going to work for you for this next speech, because we're running out of time to get these things done. So once you have a topic that you're settled on, you've got your main points worked out. And this really is the right way to write a speech. Speech making is a process, folks. Very similar to how we would bake a cake or how we would fix something in our home. We don't just throw a bunch of things together at the beginning and hope for the best. What we do is we think about our end product, which is what you've been doing so far. You've got a problem set up that you want to solve. You have found some solutions to that problem, and you know where you want to go with your presentations. Now, if you do this the other way, where you write an introduction before working through your main points, whatever you write in the introduction, you're kind of tied to for your main points. And people will struggle a lot with this process because suddenly they can't find things to fit their introduction. Now, what we've done in this way should actually make it easier for you to work in your introduction. So I've got the main points that we were working on last week that I covered in one of my lectures, and this is the document that I was working on again. I've changed the title of it, and I will put this up on the content page of D2L for Finished. But if you'll recall, my main points that I was working with last week was, number one, there's a problem where overfishing had decimated the fish populations of Lake Michigan. We lost our sturgeon, we lost our trout, we lost perch, walleye, all sorts of things. Gone now. And my second main point, where I talked about how the community is solving that problem, we found out that the Wisconsin DNR is restocking the lake at over 1 million fish per year. So there is a solution to that problem. And now that I've got those main ideas worked out, I need to come up with an introduction. And your introduction is going to consist of 4 parts. And I do want you to label those 4 parts specifically, not because you have to do this like that, like this forever, simply because I want to make sure that you're covering everything this semester. And once you leave 103 in the warm, comforting embrace of UWM, you can write your speeches and outline however you'd like. But for this semester, we're just going to do it this one way, simply to make sure that you're including all the parts. Now, the first thing you need in any speech introduction is the attention getter. That way to get into the speech. And your book does a really nice job on page 299 of covering a number of different ways to gain attention in a speech. Quotations, reference to current events, historical references, questions, rhetorical questions, humor, demonstrations, different quotes of things. And you need to decide for yourself what's going to be the best possible method to gain attention in your speech. And you can do that in any number of ways. It just has to be something that lines up really well with the rest of your speech. You can use a famous quote, but as you'll see in the other lecture this week, it might not be something that counts towards your citations for the speech. But if it works out, fantastic. Just got to make sure when we do that, it's not just a 1-second quote or 5-second quote and then you move on away from it. You can use rhetorical questions where you lead the audience down a path. But remember, asking one rhetorical question probably isn't enough. I come into my speech and I say, how many of you know what a fish is? And then I immediately move on. I haven't really done enough to gather your attention. And I've really undercut my own credibility when I'm doing that because I just took the easy, lazy way out. So do something that's highly personal to yourself, but also something that really involves the audience a little bit more than we might normally do. Because as we've talked about, the audience is the most important part of what we do in public speaking, and getting them on board right away helps them to understand that this is something that's of interest to them. So, like last week, I cheated a little bit, and I've got everything set up. So we'll work through all these in turn. So the first part of our speech is gain audience attention and interest, and my attention getter is this. Fall has arrived, but we have been given a very warm September this year, and I hope you've all been taking advantage of it. I know many of you probably enjoyed a beautiful day at Bradford Beach, walk down downtown Milwaukee's gorgeous river walk either in the evening or during the day. And if you haven't, folks, you should get outside, enjoy it, take care of yourselves. We need to do this before winter sets up. Quite simply, I don't think there are better ways right now to relax after a long week of class or a difficult week of Communication Studies 103 public speaking online than to get out and enjoy the scenic waterways of our city. And that attention getter works really well for me. Of course, it's something you probably already know that I care about because I've been talking about this here for a couple of weeks. But I feel like it thoroughly introduces where I'm headed with the topic. Now, the second thing we need to do is we state exactly what the purpose of the speech is. Now, this needs to be just simple, and I can't stress that enough. The purpose of your speech needs to be astoundingly simple. It is the one thing, or maybe even two things, but like this very focused idea, what you would like your audience to know when you're finished. So if somebody comes and asks them 2 days later, they'll be able to spout out a line or know that this issue that you're interested in is an issue and there's something being done to solve it. So for me, here is my very simple purpose statement. Today, I'd like to talk to you about how the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources, the DNR, is restocking our waterways with sturgeon, salmon, and trout to help replenish Lake Michigan's marine populations. It's just one idea. And when you finish with this speech, you should know that idea, and we're going to continue to come back to it over and over again. That being done, we need to explain why our audience should listen to you in particular. We establish our own credibility, and this can be done through a number of ways. You can explain how you are involved with the topic, have something to do with your major, stuff that you've read about, things that you've done in the past. Simply by virtue of having done research, you're building up some credibility for this presentation. For me, well, here it is. My wife and I are avid outdoor enthusiasts. We enjoy fishing, camping, hiking, and swimming, and we also participate in Milwaukee's annual Sturgeon Festival to help restore our Great Lakes fish population. That being done, we move on to the preview. In preview, you should actually already have built, and I'll explain why. The preview states what our main ideas are and the order that they'll come in. So you already have a problem and a solution set up, and those are your two main points. So tell us exactly what the first main point is going to be and exactly what the second main point is, and then you move on to the main body of the speech. So for me, today I will explain how, one, Lake Michigan's fish population was decimated by overfishing. That's our problem. And then two, I will finish with an explanation of the DNR's efforts to fix this problem. This gives the audience a way to focus on the speech. It helps them be better listeners. And that's what organization is all about. It's a gift to the audience to help them understand the topic even more. And I know, I just said when I was establishing the purpose of the speech a little bit about this, but that's perfectly fine. Being repetitive as a speaker does sound really redundant to yourself, but for your audience, it's a gift. Helps them to understand the importance of big ideas. That repetition helps them to cement the ideas in their head. Now, of course, I still have my main ideas that we worked on last week, and we move on to the conclusion. And of course, the first thing you do in the conclusion is you signal the end of the speech. I'm going to ask you a big favor, that from this point forward, till the end of all things, that you never, ever again say, in conclusion. You're better than that. You're scholars at the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee, a Tier 1 research institution, a place that has birthed thousands of scholars that have gone on to do amazing things. And you are, each and every one of you, more clever, more intelligent, and better than the statement, in conclusion. And there's a number of ways you can get out of a speech. As I come to an end, to wrap things up, as you all know, my time is running short, so I've got to finish up. Thousands of ways to get out of there, and each one just as correct as the other, so long as it ties back into the speech. So, for my conclusion, Just as the decimation of Lake Michigan's fish population is coming to an end, so too must my speech. So I hearken to what we've done to help solve that problem, to help you understand that we're finishing out. Now, it may help to put a little break in between the body of the speech and the conclusion, just a little pause of silence, helps the audience readjust, get set, so they understand unequivocally that you are coming to an end. And that's it. There's no more new information at this point. From this point on, you're just recapping what you did, reiterating things, telling us one more time how important things were. And we got to recap our main ideas. And it's very similar to the preview statement that you had, the introduction speech. If you have the main ideas outlined already, well, now you've got everything set up. So today we discussed 1, how Lake Michigan's fish population was decimated by overfishing. But we also learned, two, that the Wisconsin DNR has been hard at work to fix this problem. Now, you can be more thorough in your restatement of the problem and solution if you would like, though being very simple and to the point also has its merits. Now, I get it. Again, like we've repeated information one more time. Wow. Redundancy for the part of the speaker, but also for the audience, this really does help them to focus in on your big ideas, helps them remember things, helps them be able to bring this up in conversation later because you help them to learn what's happening. And finally, we need a strong closing line, something that wraps up the speech, something that lets our classmates know that it's time to do this and that you are finished. For me here, it is, please, as our gorgeous natural waterways, please, as you enjoy our gorgeous natural waterways, I encourage you to think about your own impact on them. Applaud the good people that work hard to protect them and replenish them, and take your own steps to help solve this issue that affects us all. This week for discussion, I want you to take your chosen topic and reinsert those main points into the discussion. I want you to create an introduction and a conclusion. And I want you to go through and clearly label the parts just as I have, those 4 parts in the introduction, these 3 parts in the conclusion, and then for your discussion replies, go through and it's another day of honesty. Please tell your classmates what does and doesn't work. If you need a little bit more, maybe they're doing too much, because that's also a possibility. And then you will have most of your speech written for next week's presentation. You'll get some good feedback from your classmates. Once that's all said and done, it's time for you to start practicing. Do let me know if you have any questions on this. I'm happy to help, and I look forward to reading what you're working on.